Boom.
Fuck it. We're doing it live.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, we usually start with that. I dropped the ball.
Was that loud?
WNBC. We're doing a new thing here. Chris and I have been talking about doing this social experiment for a while where we go through my 800 plus Facebook friends, most of whom I have no fucking clue who they are.
Yep.
Don't see anything from them on my feed because of the algorithms and everything, you know? So we thought it'd be interesting to try and beat the algorithm by reaching out to people and interviewing, getting to know better all 800 plus people as we go along. You guys, I see your stuff. I love your stuff. You're some of my most fascinating, interesting, cool people that I want to get to know better. So that's another part of the show, is getting to know people better and introducing to the world people that I know. That when I say the world, I mean like the 6 people who watch this shit. But someday, if we build a big enough audience, the world.
There you go.
So we've got from Madison, Wisconsin, Doug Johnson and Brett Saladino. I take it right? It's
Hello.
not Saladino.
Nope, that's right.
And so we're calling this Fast Friends. We got 60 minutes to become buddies. So,
All right.
Well, I was
wanna make-
born a poor black child. And then I heard my first Bonavani album.
nice. Those are some Steve
Right.
Martin quotes. All right. I have to make an admission before we get started. Normally, I don't put a picture of myself on Facebook because I just think there's way more interesting shit to put up for a profile picture than my ugly mug. So you guys might not have known what I looked like or whatever, but Doug, I'm pretty sure, and I'm ashamed to say this, but I feel in the spirit of authenticity and transparency, I should come clean. I'm pretty sure I saw you sitting in General Mitchell Airport one day, getting ready to fly somewhere. And when I fly and travel, I'm so antisocial. I did not get up and go say, hey, I think I know you or anything. I just sat there like pretty positive that's him. And now seeing you again in the flesh, 100% sure you were sitting in General Mitchell Airport. I did not go say hi. So
Apparently
Now we
not.
can have that conversation. You did have it there.
I don't know what that says about me, but
It says
when
you're
I-
human, man. That's all.
Yeah.
yeah, when I travel, I'm like, man, I just want to get through this. Maybe
Yep.
it's like
Yep.
putting on weight and shit. Traveling just sucks to me nowadays. When I was younger, I might have come over, but plus, just respect. You might be the same way. You don't want to be bothered and shit. Very
I'm in
Larry
sales.
David.
I talk to everybody, though. I mean,
Yeah, right.
because you never know. They might know somebody who needs what I sell, or they might know somebody who knows somebody that needs what I sell.
What do you
What do
sell
you sell?
exactly?
You want to pitch
Um,
it? Is it a plug-in?
sure.
Is it something
So,
pluggable?
you know what a CNC machine is?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
when you machine something, let's say you want to machine this or an engine block. Let's say this is an engine block, right? And they're
Mhm.
pretty complex. So when you push on it, you got to make sure it's held very firmly when you're machining it. So we sell very fancy clamps to hold, brake calipers, gun parts. We're doing some stuff for SpaceX. We're doing some stuff for Tesla. So when you're machining things, you want to make sure they're held very rigidly and repeatedly.
Stable, yeah.
So when you're making thousands of parts for cars, everyone comes out the same. So basically, I sell very fancy clamps.
Okay.
So,
That's awesome. Now, Brett, you have a super interesting job, right? I've seen you post pictures from under the microscope.
It depends if you're interested in that, I guess. I am a veterinary pathologist, and I work out of an office in my basement. So I get microscope slides shipped to me, and I have a $17,000 microscope, and I enter all my data in the computer. I love it. I discovered the microscope when I was in vet school in my first histology class, and I always feel like it's like Alice in Wonderland through the looking glass every time I look in the microscope, because there's always a chance I'm going to see something on the other end of it that no one else has ever seen before, and so every day is fun.
Yeah, and it's just been
I love
transported into
microscopic.
this world. Yeah.
The photography out there, you see the contests and things where they'll take photos of bugs' eyes or whatever, all those sorts of things. I love that stuff. It's beautiful.
It's very cool.
Yeah, and she's down to like a cellular level where you get some super trippy looking shit.
Nice.
I love it. I'm like jealous. I want to do it, but like I think I said something to you years ago about that. You're like, well, if you want to go to school for 12 years and
Exactly.
spend, Toyota Camry money on a microscope and shit.
Exactly. Yeah, it's at least 11 years of training.
So what are you looking for exactly? You're just studying disease? Are you biopsying shit? What is?
I actually work in the drug development field.
Mm.
So we're doing safety testing on new drugs and compounds. And I've actually done a couple studies now with COVID vaccine candidates. So it's all testing for safety before things go into humans.
You guys want to say anything about COVID and say anything to the non-mask wearers or anything else?
Can we swear?
Oh,
Can we
fuck
Of
swear?
course, please.
Okay,
Please.
fuck,
Wear a fucking mask.
fuck COVID. There
Yeah.
you go.
Fuck COVID. There you go.
Yeah, in the last week, I think I have about 12 friends that have come down with it, with symptoms, and another 5 or 6 who've lost parents.
Yeah.
It's rampaging right
it's
now.
bad. It's really bad.
By the middle of January, it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah,
Oh.
and so many
That's just
people are
my
acting
opinion.
Like it's nothing. Still,
Yeah.
acting like it's nothing. It's crazy to me.
So
Well,
what
it's
do you
only
think of
killed
the-
260,000. I mean, you know.
It's
What do you think of
it's-
the vaccine, the promises of vaccines coming?
That's a
potentially
loaded
coming out?
question. I actually have worked with people at Pfizer and Moderna. I really have a lot of respect for them, and I think they're on the right track. But I tend to be rather cautious about new drugs and new vaccines because I've seen too many of them that hit the market and go bad after that.
Especially with this Operation Warp Speed.
Right.
And
Right. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that I've seen some plans that they want to vaccinate healthcare workers first, elderly people in group homes second, elderly people with comorbidities third, prisoners fourth, and by the time they get to the rest of us, honestly, it's going to be late next year. But we'll have some really good data on how it affected those other people and is it a functional vaccine or not.
I can't wait to hear the outrage from the populace when prisoners are getting it before their kids and grandparents.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to have it given to as many people as possible before me.
Yeah,
Exactly. Right.
When I was in the Air Force, I only did 4 years, but I mean, I went in gung ho and everything, but it just went bad quickly, and I eventually became like Klinger and Mash, just trying to find ways out and shit, right? And one of my plans was to just refuse to take the anthrax vaccine. They were trying to make us take a fucking anthrax vaccine. I'm like, no way, dude. You have no clue what's in this shit. I'm not going to be the experimentation for this. Like, what have you tested it on before us?
I got that one.
What's that?
I'm alive. I got that one. I'm
The
alive.
anthrax one? All right.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, she was 10 years in the Army.
All right. Well, and I'm definitely not an anti-vaxxer. Don't get me wrong. But again, I was trying to get out. So that was, plan C or D. Luckily, I got out on a personality disorder, which is fitting, The glove.
That's good.
Valid.
Yeah,
All the best people do.
Yeah, it's a fine way to do it.
Yes.
Myself and Sinbad, the comic. We just had a stroke, by the way, which sucks.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah. Shit. Free will. Let's just jump the fuck into free will. Done.
Wow.
Talking about
All
free
right.
will.
Boom.
Yeah.
Right into my wheelhouse.
We only got 60 minutes. We're not
Well, like
fucking
a
around.
small
here.
talk.
It doesn't exist. There you go. We covered that one pretty quickly.
All right, make the case
I
to our
agree.
mother, who's probably the only person who would watch this.
Okay, so here's my journey with free will. So back when I was 13, 14, I read the Bible because my parents, used to go to St. John Vianney's every Sunday morning at 7:30 in Brookfield. And then we'd go to Elliot's Diner, the big silver diner that was in Brookfield. And I'd always have a cheeseburger with bacon on it and a chocolate malt, which is why I went to church. And then
God damn, it sounds good.
I read the Bible and I went,
I'd have no free will presented with that meal.
I have no free will
Have to
when it
eat
comes to cheeseburgers.
so I read the Bible literally front to back, and I went,
Yeah.
And then I remember having the conversation with my parents. We were watching Saturday Night Live, and I went to bed. I said, well, I'm not going to get up and go to church tomorrow morning because I don't believe in God. And wow. Yeah. That went well. Really well. You just believe in your Dungeons and Dragons. And
Yes.
I know. Yeah, it was just.
I worship
like,
the altar of Gary Gygax. Fuck
yeah,
you,
and I'm
Mom.
like, yeah, I'm going to bed.
Around what year was this around?
I was 13 or 14.
Which was around what? Because I'm just wondering if it was during the satanic what you call it? During the 80s with the scares.
Late
Late
so it would have been like
70s.
70?
Late 70s.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
70.
Well,
yeah,
that
like
was still,
around
but
80.
yeah.
because I was
So
born
she
in
thought you were into Satan because
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
the whole Tipper Gore line.
Right.
Mhm.
But along with reading the Bible, I started to think about the whole concept of free will is do we have a choice? Do we have a decision? Because if you read the Bible and God knows everything you're going to do, he knows what you're going to do when you're 85 and you're on your deathbed. He already knows what you're going to do. Well,
Mhm.
if he knows every decision you're going to make, I'm not really making decisions.
Right.
I'm just hitting the next plot point in the big book that he's up there going, oh, yeah, here it comes. This is the time he steps off the curb and breaks his ankle. And oh, yeah, there he goes. So I'm like, okay. So that was when I first started to think about there is no free will. It was after reading the Bible. That's what really kind of got me down that path. And then it was 5 or 6 years ago. When I could travel for work, I used to listen to a lot of audiobooks, a lot of podcasts, college lectures. So, of course, I listened to a lot of them on free will and philosophy, a lot of comparative religion, Buddhism, Judaism, Catholicism, just all the different religions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in Michigan, and I was driving down the road, and I was thinking about the whole free will thing.
That's proof there's no free will, because who the fuck would choose to go to Michigan?
Right.
Well, I get a lot of customers there, so I have to.
Shit.
And have some good beer there too. But so I'm driving down the road, and I literally had this moment where it's going to sound all wooey, but I felt like I was going to disincorporate into my individual atoms.
Nice.
It was this moment of, I don't know, ultimate panic or something. Samadhi, yeah. It was this moment of pure existential crisis. And I literally felt I was doing this. Like the whole world just kind of went.
As you're driving?
And then it went back together, and I went, well, that was something. Then I called her. I said, okay, I got to tell you this thing that just happened to me. So I almost came apart.
You might be under your microscope.
But then I read a book called Behave, which I recommend to everybody. It goes through how the body works from a cellular level all the way up to the macro level. So when things happen in your body, what happens within a second of that, what happens within 5 minutes, what happens within a month. And even from a biological level, we don't have free will. Here's an example. You know what alien limb syndrome is?
Yes.
So, you get your corpus callosum cut because you have epilepsy. And then there's a woman, one of the best cases I heard was, there's a woman who had this done, and it really helped alleviate her symptoms. But every time she tried to light up a cigarette, her right hand would smack the cigarette out of her hand. Every time she swore, her right hand would slap her. So where's the self there? And I think free will and the self kind of tie into the same thing. So if you look at, they've done studies on when you make decisions that the brain reacts before the conscious thoughts of doing the thing. So, if there's no self, how are you making decisions? And if all these biological systems just happen and are chugging along, I'm truly a causal determinist. And
determinism, because that's another part of the whole free will argument is
right.
If you take the entire universe down to every atom, every quantum particle as it is today, and reset it, would everything play out exactly the same again or not? Including the way we think, because whenever you're presented with any kind of stimulus or decision to make, your brain's going to just automatically arrive at the same thing every time. In the deterministic view, I agree with you. Actually,
output.
We're a sum of everything that's happened to us up to this moment, and I personally derive a great deal of peace from that, a great deal of comfort and ease in the world. So when I make decisions, it's rare I get stressed out when there's something that comes up that I have to make a decision about. It's just like I relax into it and I just go, and I don't worry about that. And I know a lot of people, I know she's not real hip on the whole not free will thing, because like most people,
good, I want to hear from you in a minute.
We have an ego.
Yeah.
And our ego demands I make choice. it demands all these things from us. I'm like,
It's also like, how do you hold anyone accountable for anything, right?
Right.
Like if, you know, a killer or a molester or whatever, you know, if they had no control over their actions or thoughts, then, you know, it's kind of wrong to punish people for something they can't control, right?
and I
So
think
yeah, that's a whole Pandora's box there
Oh, but
too.
it's not so much about accountability sometimes. Well, first off, the people who are doing the punishing aren't choosing to punish either because they don't have the free will.
Right.
It's all like, it's
Yeah,
all just
you
having
can't be
all
mad at them either.
marionettes and
Exactly.
puppets on strings, essentially. Now,
right.
you had your existential religious crisis where you did away with God being the puppet master. So, did you come to a place of more turmoil or peace after that? Because you said you came to the lack of free will idea thinking about it through God, but once you dispensed with God, did you have to re-engage with the idea of there being no free will in a different way, or is it just like it doesn't?
No, it was just like a piece falling into place because I thought about free will off and on. I was a big science fiction reader. You know, I was reading a book every 2 to 3 days back in junior high, and it was just like as soon as I read the Bible and I realized what if God's omniscient, that there are no choices, which is funny because everybody's like, well, no, God gave us free will. I'm like, not if you read the Bible. But that's
Yeah,
just
I was wondering that. I always had heard that the idea is like in Bruce Almighty, which we'll get to. The idea, right, is that God says you
That's
can.
the second hour.
That God has this plan and He makes everything happen the way He wants, and He's omnipotent and all that. Yet humans have free will. But I'm not a scholar on the Bible at all, so that's how I always thought it was interpreted. But so you say in the Bible, it doesn't say anything of that kind, of that nature, that people have free will. It's
boy, it's been so long since I've read it. I read snippet. I do read.
I mean, it's so huge and conflicting and everything.
For an evangelical atheist, I read a lot more Bible than most people.
Mhm.
That's ironically usually the case. I know a lot of atheists who know the Bible way better than the people who.
Well, you kind of need to vet yourself and be able to sort of defend the position and
deconstruct it, right?
Yeah,
but yeah. It was just a piece falling in, going, okay, yeah. It just and like it took me 30 years, 35 years to go from starting to really question free will to really becoming comfortable with it. I mean, it wasn't like something I did. It was something that I investigated and read about and investigated. And it was something that I worked towards. But yeah, then it was all in that crystalline moment, that moment of samadhi, where it's just all kind of like, and then it came back together. It was like, oh, good. No, I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's just,
all right.
It just fell into place. It was crazy.
Brett, let's hear from you on free will. Do you guys, by the way, have like bickering little arguments about free will over the dinner table and shit? That would be amazing.
She doesn't have a choice.
No, we don't.
Exactly.
And
perfect.
We have no free will. Pass the beans.
Yes.
I mean, I feel, I appreciate Doug for who he is, and I appreciate where he is, and I appreciate that, in this life, this is what he needs to believe, and it's okay. And I don't believe exactly the same thing. I was raised largely, by a Lutheran Buddhist, if you can believe that. She claimed to be Buddhist, but she wasn't. She believed very much in a loving and vengeful God, which was really kind of confounding. We didn't go to church. I grew up believing that the most spiritual place I could possibly be was out in the woods. Yes. And I think that I am largely a pagan with some Buddhist underlyings. But I haven't been able to get rid of my ego. I grew up poor. I worked very hard to get where I am in this world. And I also believe very strongly that I was quite lucky to get where I am in this world. Mm-hmm. Which maybe is determinism, and maybe I had no control, but I like to think that I had some control in winding up where I am. And my feeling is if there truly is no free will, I would not get out of bed every day, because there's nothing better than laying in bed.
So, but you kind of have to feed yourself and all those things.
Yeah. And, maybe that's all part of it, but I don't feel good thinking that I have no say in what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think we can
unsettling to me.
we can operate under the illusion we have free will, even if we don't. I think, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's kind of
that
how
might
we
be
all
the
really
case
do
with us.
operate.
Every day.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly. You kind of have to. Yeah, and
And-
same with accountability in the justice system and all that. You kind of have to
Social
operate as a
contract.
society as if there
Yep.
really is one, because otherwise, what do you do? Yeah.
And like Doug says all the time that he is absolutely okay with the fact that he could be wrong. And I'm absolutely okay with the fact that I could be wrong.
That's
Which
so
is crucial,
huge.
because that's the biggest problem a lot of people have. They cannot be wrong. They, we know that as far as the kind of debates we're having in our society.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
going
Going
all the way back to
Bertrand
the stuff
Russell,
right.
was essentially paraphrasing, the greatest problem in society is that intelligent people are so full of doubt and stupid people are so full of certitude.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if more people could say, I don't know about so many things, how much better
And
the fucking place
there
in
were
the world
periods, and even today, there are places where just saying the things we're saying right now will get you executed.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Yeah.
is. Yep.
But as-
all the way back to Giordano Bruno, the
Yes.
scientists executed in the square, It's like,
Right.
Jesus Christ.
But after 11 years in college and now almost 20 years doing what I do for a living, I'm still wrong on a weekly basis. And I'm constantly asking, I mean professionally, I don't mean at home.
I'm never wrong there.
But, I have no problem asking other people, what do you think? And what does your experience show you? Because I want to learn. I want to keep learning. I want to keep getting better. So I try and keep my mind open. And that spills into my day-to-day life too. The one I have the most trouble with is that Doug is also a solipsist. And solipsism is the belief that you are the center of the universe and everything else
Descartes.
is a figment of your thoughts.
Yes.
And so he says sometimes that after he dies, I will cease to exist. And I
Which is true.
have a really hard time.
For
Turns
me,
out,
and
so he's
from
not
my
wrong.
POV, right? And you're
So, quick aside on solipsism. So, I've read a lot about Buddhism, the self and the ego and things with that. And when people think about solipsism, they think about, well, it's such a narcissistic point of view, and you're the only one that matters. And I said, here's my take on solipsism. If everything exists in my world, that means I am responsible for the care, happiness, and feeding of everything on this world that exists. I am I
You're
need
a benevolent God.
right.
Now,
I
loving
have
God.
to. Right. That means if someone's sick, I have to tend to them. It's not I'm the only one who matters. It's like, holy crap, everything matters, and I have to take care of it.
Interesting.
But
With
to
great
be
power comes
clear-
great responsibility.
To
But
be
he has
clear,
no
though,
free will with which to do that. So.
right? No shit.
Also, I
but
think it's ironic. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, to be clear, are you saying use this as sort of a tool to look at the world, or do you actually believe for not fact, because no one knows, but I mean, do you strongly feel that you really that everything else is just fantasy and that it's all in your head? I mean, because to be a true solipsist, that would mean that's the case, that you really believe you're it and you're like the brain in the vat, and everything else is imagined. I mean, that's what Descartes' whole thing was. You can't really get past, I think, therefore I am. Beyond that, everything else is suspect.
Yeah, and you can't prove or disprove either one of them.
Right, you can't. In philosophy, you just have to make that leap. You just can't get past it otherwise. Yeah.
I guess I kind of use it as a basis for how I try to. I guess I use solipsism as my basis for compassion to view the rest of the world through.
Yeah.
I mean, in my past, I used to be, pro death penalty and rah rah America, and everybody should own a gun, and don't you dare spit or piss on the flag because then you're not American. You should die. I mean, I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh for like 10 years straight, and Mark
This is
Belling.
great. I'd love to dive
was
into how this transition.
I was all that. I was way down that path. I mean, conspiracy theories left and right. I mean, I was in. And most of that started to change leading up to my
from reality.
reality had nothing to do with the way I thought.
Right.
But after my suicide attempt is when I really started to change. I realized that when I woke up, this is when I had the opportunity to be who I wanted to be, to kind of start over and really, figure out how I fit in the world and how the world worked. And that's what I did. Is after that attempt, when I woke up, my plan B was be who I wanted to be. And that's when I really started to look at the world from a much, I hate to say it, much more humane viewpoint, where every single human life has the exact same value.
Yeah.
I used to believe, oh yeah, if you did a bad thing, you were a bad person, and I'm better than you because I didn't do that thing. And now I'm like,
It's
They had no free will. They couldn't.
well,
it's
how
funny.
many people have the religion that their parents had,
Right.
or their
course,
grandparents
exactly.
had? How many
Yeah.
people have the politics of their parents or their grandparents?
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah,
programming.
it's a meme,
So-
inherited thought virus. Yeah.
Yeah. So how many people really believe what they believe as a completely independent individual, or independent being? And I'd say most don't, because they follow in the footsteps of their
Yeah.
parents and the
Absolutely.
snowball that started with their grandparents and their great grandparents. And
And it was just a couple days ago I was talking to Doug about what he used to be and how he used to be, and it was before I knew him. But he said he didn't realize how unhappy those beliefs were making him.
Mm-hmm.
oh, I was
It is a cycle, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
People get caught in just a misery cycle where
And-
yeah, to
they
harbor
feel
that
this
anger.
internal misery, so then they externalize it and out
And-
onto the world. Hurt people, essentially.
Yeah, because I was just always angry at the world and angry at people because they couldn't pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and how dare they be poor? What kind of And now that now it's like,
But-
yeah, I'm
But
good.
when you wake up after a suicide attempt, it's kind of a clean slate.
Yeah, it's a
know,
reset.
Yeah, you have an opportunity right then to say,
Not a method I recommend.
Things
There's
are
better
gonna
ways
be
to do
different.
that reset.
Yeah. We,
Yeah.
Jay and I just had that
LSD.
conversation.
Dimethyltryptamine. Sorry.
Yes. We just had that same conversation that if you, attempt to kill yourself or you come close to if you don't, then you can say, well, I wouldn't be here. So the rest is just like new lease on life, sort of. You can just it's liberating. Gives you a
Yeah,
lot of
it's like a free
freedom.
pass.
Yeah.
I was hoping two things. First, I just wanted to throw this joke in that I think it's ironic that your mother thought you were a Satanist because of Dungeons and Dragons, but solipsism is kind of what Satanism is. Like, isn't it like actual
Right.
Satanism that I am
You let Faust
God?
wilt.
Yes, exactly.
yeah, but she's dead now, so it's okay.
Secondly, I'm glad you
Although I
brought up the
should be
suicide
very
thing.
happy I was a Democrat now. Although
Oh,
I'm really a socialist pacifist.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Chris and I now, instead of the left-right thing or Democrat, Republican, we try and just call ourselves, if anything, rational humanists is what we strive
Yes.
to be.
There you go. There you go.
I wish I almost want to try and push that as a thing, rational humanism. If we
What
could
does
all
the
just
most
be
good-
that, everything takes
We
care of
need-
itself.
We need a really good third-party candidate who runs on rational humanism.
Absolutely.
what does the most good for the most people?
Yeah.
I wish Andrew Yang would do that. That's to me what his policies
Yep.
sound like.
Yeah,
that's
I gave him some money.
I was listening
Nice.
to NPR the other day. Some people were saying that Biden needs to get him in the cabinet.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
praying for that too. That he would
Early
make
on
that
during
move.
the debates and the campaign and everything, Andrew Yang said that Biden said if he wins, there will be a place for him in his cabinet, but we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. I mean,
Well, I'm just waiting for Trump to lose. He hasn't lost yet.
hasn't conceded at the least, but yes.
He'll never concede.
No, he
never,
won't.
Right,
never,
no,
never. It's not
no.
about winning or losing. It's about
No.
getting his followers to believe he lost. That's
Right.
all this is. And to make money.
yeah,
But
the whole
anyhow,
thing's
sorry, I
crazy.
digressed.
Well, let's jump back to the suicide thing for a minute because I was hoping you would broach the subject. I didn't know if you wanted to discuss that or not, but I know you're pretty open with it.
Yeah,
I was
very
aware
open
of it.
about it.
Do you got one of the semicolon tattoos or something, I think, right? Or no, maybe.
Yep,
somebody
right
does.
there.
Right. And if
And,
people they don't know, that's, you want to explain what that tattoo is?
So, and I have a story to go with that because I'm in sales. I always have a story. But so, yeah, what the semicolon tat project was started by a woman actually from Wisconsin up north. And it was because she had struggled and she had dealt with depression and suicide, and she had some pretty significant mental health issues over the years. So what the semicolon is that your life has a pause, not a period. So my attempt was a break in a sentence, and then now my life is continuing, and that's kind of where the semicolon project started, and the thinking and the meaning behind it. And I've met quite a few people who have the tattoo, but Amy Bluell from Wisconsin, she died 5 years ago now, and she finally lost the struggle against suicide. She did kill herself. So since it was in Wisconsin, I thought I'd go, and I was terrified.
Funeral?
To
Yeah,
the funeral.
and I was terrified. I'm like, well, do I wear a kilt like I normally do? Or I'm like, nope. I wear my suit, full suit, tie, a whole thing, dressed up. And I figured it was going to be.
He'd never met her or any
No,
of her family.
never
She
interacted
just
with her
had
at
a lot
all.
of meaning to him
Yeah,
through the Semicolon Project.
Yes.
And so I get to the funeral, and I kind of walk in, and it was weird meeting her for the first time, and she's laid out in a casket, and I know her family's there, and I thought it was going to be packed. I thought there was going to be like thousands of people there, because
Like you.
there are millions and millions of people worldwide who have a semicolon tattoo. So I figured it was going to be like this huge. No. So I'm sitting down in the back of the room, and at some point, can't remember if it was before I talked to her mom or after. But so I was sitting in the back, and well, I went up front, and you walk past, you do the visitation. I knew her family was up front, and I wanted to talk to her mom. So I knelt down on the floor in front of her mom on the couch right up by the casket, and I said, I didn't know Amy. I said, and I showed her my tattoo, and I said, do you know how many lives Amy has touched? How many lives she has changed? How many lives she has saved worldwide? And I don't think her family knew. I think they knew about the project, but I don't think they had the
reach of it.
Yeah.
I don't think they knew the scope. So so I talked to her, and I talked to her widow, and I talked to her brother for a little bit. And then Amy's mom asked me to talk.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, so I ran up to the car because I'm
spot.
panicking now, and I called Brett. I said, Brett, Amy's mom wants me to say something. I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Brett was like, it doesn't matter what I say, there's no free will.
Just go wing it.
So yeah, I'm like, I'm freaking out. I'm like, well, I can't not. At this point, I can't not say something.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I wasn't prepared for any of this at all, So yeah, I went up, and I talked about the project and the number of people I've met because I have the tattoo, and the conversations that it has started, and the openness that it has brought to the world about the topic of suicide and mental illness, and that how much Amy has literally changed the world. I mean, the world is an entirely different place because Amy started this mission of hers,
Yeah.
And then, so after I talked to her, when I sat down, and then Amy's mom sent everybody back to talk to me. So all of Amy's family, one at a time, came back and talked to me.
Interesting.
And
you hijacker, you became the star of someone else's
no,
You always got to be the star of the show.
Ego.
I completely understand you saying that, but it wasn't
just joking. I go for the joke.
Oh no, I get it.
Right.
Because I was thinking about that while it was happening. But
imposter syndrome a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, they came back, and they thanked me for showing up, for sharing my story, for helping them understand the difference Amy had made to the world, because none of them really knew the reach, and the fact that there weren't thousands of people there stunned me. I was really surprised there weren't more people like me who knew Amy only through the tattoo. But yeah, and then I left the funeral, and I was a different person. I have not been the same since leaving that. I was the level of openness and love and charity and awesomeness that I left that with. Yeah,
it was more
life affirming.
solipsistic. It was more solipsistic, really, because he was just taking care of Amy's family.
Ah,
The
no,
only
it
thing
was-
that would
how
make
long
this
ago
story
was that?
better is if you were in your kilt and fez while you did all this.
Well, I thought about it, but I'm like,
yes.
if I knew there were going to be a whole bunch of other Semicolon Project people there, I would have. But I wasn't sure.
Explain the fez and the kilt thing to me. Is that just something idiosyncratic, fun to you, or is there any kind of significance or meaning behind those things?
Well, I started wearing kilts when Brett and I first met.
Easy access.
Yes.
Well, I only have 4 up here with me though, not the other ones downstairs. No, I just it was all a part of what I said when I woke up. I was all about reinventing myself,
Hmm.
and then someone I knew from high school was going to have a kilts and corsets party.
Sounds
And,
fun. I
I'm
love
in.
corsets.
It was very good. I call that one a win.
He had to buy a kilt.
So
I
I'd-
already had corsets.
So I had to buy a kilt, and then
I think I'd probably be wearing a corset nowadays, unfortunately. But
yeah, and then I just
damn
I
cheeseburgers.
never looked
And
back.
corset combined.
I have 17 kilts now. They're just fun. I mean, they're absolutely conversation starters.
We're going to see you in Dr. Drew someday, celebrity rehab for your kilt addiction.
And where do you wear these? Like in what situations? Just generally, just throwing them
Like
around?
when I went to the grocery store on
Awesome.
Friday, I wore a fez.
I
Okay,
love it. Don't
Right.
panic, Fez. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
nice.
it's just
Love it.
it's all about just,
Icebreaker.
yeah. It's amazing the conversations that I have had or we have had with people because I'm in a kilt or I'm in a fez.
I used to do that, Chris. You remember when I was in like
Yeah,
the elephant tie and
yes.
just props? I'd go out wearing some crazy wig or
Mhm.
something and just
Same, yeah. We both would do
yeah,
that,
it was a great way into just having a non-confrontational conversation with a random stranger. There's
Yep.
this icebreaker there, you know.
Mhm.
Before COVID, we also used to wear free hugs T-shirts sometimes when we'd go out into the world, and we'd get some good hugs out of it. That was always fun.
So you guys are super spreaders, is what you're saying?
Yeah, well, we
We're
haven't-
trying.
we would have been, yes.
See, I don't know about that. My physical boundary, I don't know if I want hugs from people. That shit feels weird to me. But
I love hugs.
we probably need them. We all need more hugs for
Yeah.
sure. But
20
They
seconds.
say one of the when you smoke cannabis, one of the effects that the chemicals that's released in your system is the same as getting a hug.
maybe that's
Exactly.
why I
So
don't
that
need
may be why I
hugs.
smoke. Exactly, it's a good surrogate for hugs.
Well, it was funny when we wear the T-shirts out in public. People would come up and hug Doug, and then sometimes they would look at me, and they would then they'd look at Doug and go, "May I?" And then
Yeah,
they'd hug
that's
me.
interesting.
And I was like,
I
"What
don't
the
own
hell?
her.
I'm not property.
That's hilarious.
I'm wearing
It's
the
like
shirt
they
of my own
think they're being
accord."
respectful,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
insulting at the same time.
yeah.
Yeah, we were at a Wurst Fest in Madison a couple years ago. Well, 4 or 5 years ago. And there was this big guy, had a beer in his hand. He's like, "Oh, can I get a hug?" I'm like, "Sure." And I started giving him a hug. I'm like, wait. And I handed my beer. I said, "Wait, hold my beer." So I went in. I mean, I gave him everything. I gave him everything I had. I just hugged him.
Like
Full
squeeze
contact.
the butt cheek and shit.
Like the big
Almost.
25
Meatloaf and
Yeah, I was going for the
like a
full
hard-
20-second hug.
Yeah.
Like
Hard to hard hug.
this is my brother I haven't seen in like 35 years. And I
That's
love him to death.
awesome.
And like 2.5 seconds in, he's like patting me on the back, like, dude.
And
Like,
then
oh, dude, that's
Nice.
enough.
and then trying to back up, like
He didn't realize what he signed on for. man.
Hey, you're asking me for a hug. I'm going all in. I'm giving you everything I have.
He's like, dude, I asked you on a date, not getting married. What the fuck?
we got way off track on the suicide talk, though. Did you have other questions?
Well, I'm
What?
endlessly curious. First off, anytime I hear someone died, no matter how it happened, whether it's suicide, self-inflicted or not, the morbid curiosity in me is always like, how, which is gross, I know, but I just can't help
Well-
it. So I'll be frank about that. I'm curious how you did it, but also
So,
what led you to that point.
well, what led me to that point was I'd been married to the mother of my children for like 19 and a half years.
All right, say no more.
That'll do it. Yeah.
No. I love her to death. I love her. I talked to her yesterday on the phone because she
You
just got
can't-
married.
You can't say it.
She just my
It's a
ex just got
secret.
married, and I'm really, really happy, and it made me cry. I was so happy for her. I mean,
Awesome.
True that.
we've had Thanksgivings together. I mean, I love
Yeah.
that woman, but we got married too young. I was still very much in my Asperger's brain right? I couldn't socially interact with people to save my life. I couldn't tell if somebody was bored or I,
Mhm.
I didn't know how emotions worked.
So that was before you got into sales then?
Yeah, way before. But so we had been married and we had been unhappy for the last 10 years of our marriage, easy. And then she told me it was over, and I took it a little hard. I didn't know how to deal with that because I tied so much of my identity into the marriage, into being her husband, and being the parent to my children, that I couldn't see a way to exist outside of that identity.
Now, the you that
That's
was
where the
married to
solipsism
her,
kicks.
that was like the conservative.
Oh
gonna
yeah,
swing
that was
flag.
the asshole. That was the guy nobody wanted to be friends with. And that was part of it too. I had like 2 friends, and I saw one of them every like quarter.
Right.
I was very, very isolated, very much withdrawn and introverted and depressed, and very unhappy. I mean, my she and the kids would go to bed. I'd sit on the couch and watch TV and cry for an hour and a half every night. I mean, it was just that was my existence. So it was pretty unbearable. So yeah, the marriage ended, and then.
But you were still living in the house.
Yeah, I was still living in the house for the first month or so. For the first month or so, we slept in the same bed yet.
Oh man!
I moved down to the couch and then into the basement.
Yeah, you got to cleave like a band-aid, just rip that shit off.
Yeah, but couldn't afford it.
Yeah, that is.
Couldn't afford to cleave. I had no place to go, so that's why I lived in my own basement for a year and a half.
Did she start dating and shit? You had to deal with that whole thing.
Yeah, she was dating.
Oh,
yeah, she left me for another guy, which is fine. I mean,
but when you're in the state you were in, yeah, I'm
right.
sure.
When I was in that state, I couldn't see that. I mean, I remember. No, just in case, I won't tell that story.
No, don't.
But
just kidding.
I'll tell you off. I'll tell you off.
No one's listening. Don't worry, we don't have any listeners.
Yeah, but the one time it happens. But what I realized looking back, and I'll finish that story later. It's a little segue. If I loved her, and I do, and she was just trying to figure out how to be happy, how can I be mad at her? How can I fault her for trying to figure out how to be happy when neither of us were?
Right.
And that was the viewpoint that really helped me move past all the anger and the.
Did you come to this through therapy or something, or just sitting there stewing?
No, lying in. So, see this closet we're in? The room I lived in the basement in Waukesha was this.
It's about twice the space.
It was 8 by 12. A year and a half I lived in an 8 by 12 room with a mattress on the floor and the oil tank in a corner for the furnace. And that's where I worked. I listened to Eckhart Tolle, listened to a couple other books that really helped me put this in place. But yeah, so about a week after it happened, I had made a plan. I bought a brand new bottle of 100 extra strength Tylenol, bought a 1 liter bottle of Maker's Mark. Kelly was going away for the evening. The kids and I watched Despicable Me. Put the kids to bed, went down in my office, which was in the basement, put my iPod on shuffle, and took 98 extra strength Tylenol, drank just about a full liter of Maker's Mark, and took all my antidepressants. And me being me, plan A was I don't wake up. And I'm like, well, okay, what happens if I do? I gotta have what? Because if I do, then now I'm the guy who tried. What? But I'm like, okay, if I do, then I'm never looking back. I'm going forward, full steam ahead. I'm going to figure out who I am, what I want to do. Now, the smart thing to do was just have done that.
Just do that, yeah.
Yeah, but it's hard. People need some kind of emblematic moment or some kind of
we need permission.
Catastrophe theory. You need a catastrophe to switch from not boiling to boiling. It's
we need permission to make that break, and nothing in our society gives us permission to do that. But a suicide attempt is like the societal permission to make a break and a dramatic change in your life.
It's like instead of people just flying their freak flags, we almost corner them into attempting suicide to get to fly their freak flag with permission.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So then I woke up, and then I went, all right, went upstairs, and then Kelly came home about 11 o'clock the next morning. I
Did you go to the hospital or anything?
Well, I kind of fell down the stairs very quickly. I didn't fall, but I
Should've
like
fell
ran.
up the stairs.
And then I laid down on the couch, and she said, "You okay?" I said, "No, I'm not good at all." And then I went in the kitchen and told her. I said, "Okay, here's what happened." She's like, "Oh, okay." So she called the hospital. I said, "Well, if he seems okay now." And then she waited a little bit. And then she called him again. They're like, "No, get his ass in here."
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, what does 98 extra shakes Tylenol do to your liver, et cetera?
Tears
Yeah.
Did they pump your stomach, or is that
No, because it was too late.
It was too
Because
late.
I had taken everything by 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, and it was 11 o'clock the next morning.
But he essentially went into liver failure over the next few days.
And several times the doctor said, "Well, pretty soon we're going to not be able to understand you because the ammonium's going to build up in your brain. And then when you start speaking gibberish, we'll know that your liver's shutting down, and then you're going to die."
You have like at least an 18 constitution because you definitely aced
Well,
that saving
no, I have
throw.
Ozzy
you made your
Osbourne's
saving
liver.
throw?
Yeah, exactly.
I made my saving throw like a bazillion times. I rolled a whole bunch of 20s.
Rolled a 20. Oh yeah.
But, and then I spent 4 days in the hospital, and then they moved me to the psych ward, and I met with the
That's where I met Brett. Just kidding.
and then I met with the shrink, and I told him my story. He's like, "Yeah, you can go home tomorrow." He didn't make me stay the mandatory 3 days. And I literally, I haven't looked back once. I haven't, yeah.
When you stepped out of that facility, was it just like, and birds and everything is brighter?
Oh, yeah,
the weight
absolutely.
has been lifted.
From the moment I woke up on my basement floor, that's the mindset I've been in. It was all forward.
So
all
even
moving
when you're in
forward.
the hospital with the liver damage and everything, you had to
Well,
be like,
they give you this stuff that tastes like, think of the taste of a bunch of rotten eggs, like a couple of dozen rotten eggs, and a whole bunch of burning match heads, the sulfur ones, right? And you distill that into like a shot glass.
It's a liquid sulfur that negates the ammonia in your system. It helps tie it up.
So they'd bring it to me, and they'd bring it to me in this big glass, right? It'd be like this much in a big glass of orange juice. So then I have to drink a bunch of it. And I said, "Stop, just bring me the stuff." She said, "Really?" I said,
"Straight."
Yeah. So I was just taking it straight because I'm like, I'm going home. I'm done. And yeah, they're like, "You sure?" I mean, yeah, I'm going home. So yeah.
It's like 98 Tylenol. I can take a shot of this.
Yeah, exactly. But it's and that's why I share my story because
And then how long after that did we meet?
that was December. My attempt was December 11th.
And we met August the next year.
We met August in 2011.
Yeah.
Do you guys have, as they say in the movie business, a meet cute? Like, how did you guys meet? Was it some little moment? He was wearing a fez in a grocery store and you just had to talk to him?
We actually met on the internet.
We met on Facebook.
Yeah, on Facebook.
Nice.
A mutual friend. It's a really convoluted story that we don't have time for, but she was dating a guy I knew, and her sister used to go to high school with Doug. So we'd sort of met on Facebook, and I was seeing his comments to her posts,
Which were
and
clever and witty.
yeah, and I was like, "Oh, he's really funny. He's really funny. I like his humor." And then she basically said, "You guys need to meet." And I said, "Okay." And I called him up and I said, "Stasia says we need to meet. Let's meet." And he said, "When?" And I said, "Tonight." And he's like, "I have to go deliver a pool up north of Milwaukee, but I could meet you after that." So we met at a restaurant.
Did he wear a kilt and a fez?
Oh no, this was pre-kilt.
This is pre-kilt and fez.
Okay.
This was pre-kilt. So we met at this restaurant
They
at
wore a
like,
dress.
I don't know,
Delafield Brewhouse.
7:30
7
or
o'clock.
8. We met, and then they threw us out at closing time.
At
They were
11.
like, "You guys have to leave."
They're all standing there looking at us like,
we were
The hard out
having
buzzer went,
we were just having so much fun talking, and I was quoting Firefly.
She quoted Firefly
You
to
could
me.
almost feel.
And if there had been a camera looking at me, my eyes would have done that sparkle thing it does in movies.
and then his
they would've
heart
gone,
would have come right out of his chest like this.
Yes.
Ooh,
Roger Rabbit shit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at the end of the night, he gave me an amazing kiss. I was blown away. It was an amazing kiss.
Aw.
Me giving a kiss like that was so one of the rules I made for myself was I have to live outside my comfort zone,
Yes.
right? Because nothing fun happens in here. It just doesn't. Well, rarely does. So she went to give me a hug, and I didn't kiss her. And then as I pulled back from the hug, then I just
That's
Went
movie
in.
shit too, you know. Like, fuck
And
it,
it
I'm
was-
going in. I gotta
yeah,
do this.
exactly.
It was perfect. And then we had our second date a couple nights later. I took him out for an amazing steak dinner.
Brett, let me
And
ask
then
you real quick.
Uh-huh.
Since you seem so much a woman of action and you were the protagonist, you put all this into play by saying we need to go out. If he had not kissed you, would you have made the first move?
No,
See,
Not
that's something
that-
that's interesting. People
not
don't-
that night. I would not have.
Right. Just there is a
but I-
pressure
but I
on
would
men.
have-
I don't think enough women appreciate that. It is such
Mhm.
an act of courage to make that move. And now with the whole Me Too thing,
Right.
where you
Oh,
can't
it's
just
terrifying.
Yeah.
go in like that's what we were taught, like grab her, kiss her, you know. So that's how you show her.
Right.
Now you have
For
to
the
have
sake of
submission.
equality,
Yeah.
for the sake of equality, women need to be the aggressors now. That's what I think.
I would have met up with him a second time, and I would have been the aggressor the second time, but not the first time.
She was.
And then
Right for
our,
that kiss you
Do
put on
tell.
there, man.
and
But
then
yeah,
Put it
but
in your hands.
I think our third date was the kilts and corsets party. And the
Mm.
person who was having the party was the person who had introduced us to each other.
And she didn't know we had started dating.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if have you seen the video of me doing the Lady Marmalade
No.
drag thing?
In drag.
That was at that birthday party because that was so far outside my comfort zone. A friend of ours who used to be a DJ in Milwaukee, she said, "Hey, we should do this lip sync to Lady Marmalade." I'm like, "What?" Like,
Comfort
yeah.
zone, comfort zone.
You have to wear all tights and a
On a tutu.
tutu, and I'm like, in a wig, and I'm like, "Oh shit." She said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I have to. Why? Because it's outside my comfort zone."
Right. I have a credo. I was follow.
Yeah.
We still talk about the power of the stripy tights.
That is first off, I failed to say up top at the beginning of this episode, like all episodes in the foreseeable future, are brought to you by the movie we made, Cactus Jack. And there will be a trailer that runs at the end of this, but
Go us.
I might run your Lady Marmalade dance with it at the
I
end.
will.
of the
I will
episode.
find it and share it for you.
Yes, perfect. We'll put that at the end of
It
this.
was so far outside my comfort zone.
Dude, that's something I struggle with so hard. Chris, I know you do too. Comfort zone shit. Like, making it a point to not go out of my comfort zone is so dangerous to a degree, but at the same time, it's like, there's no free will. I'm not even choosing to not go do these things.
Right. Exactly.
Going out on, and really, like I said, going out on a limb. What does it all mean? Living life to the fullest. We're all going to die anyway. There's some fatalist thing in me, and nihilism, maybe even, or nihilism, however you pronounce it. I'm just like, who cares, dude? Even my own life should be a big deal, but I'm like, who gives a fuck? You know?
It was an active thing to go outside my comfort zone, whatever possible.
Yeah.
I did karaoke, which was terrible. I did Big Girls by Fergie. It was bad. I hit 2 notes in the entire song,
That's great.
but it was, my
I mean,
friends
do you
like,
feel though it's been so much more rewarding, and that is the path to take? Like, would you
Oh, yeah.
emphasize that to people?
Yes.
Or-
yeah, I mean, the people we've met,
Yeah.
it's rare for Brett and I to go someplace, whether it's a brewery or dinner or whatever, where we don't leave and we've talked to some people, and odds are added Facebook friends for whatever that's worth. But it just happens all the time because we try to do that now. We try to engage because it's all about making the world smaller. The more people know each other, the less bad the world is.
Yeah.
So
Less
the harder it is.
Misunderstandings and
Yeah.
conflicting views and such. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And some of the folks we've met up with, we don't agree with on big issues,
Mhm.
but they're good people.
Right.
And
Yeah, just because you disagree on a certain economic system, for example, capitalism
Right.
versus communism or socialism or what have you. It's like, is that a reason for us to like kill each other? Of course not. It's ridiculous.
right. And it's been fun to develop friendships with these folks that I know I don't have a whole lot in
Mhm.
common with. Like there's one person in particular who periodically sends me photographs of turtles that her son has found on the highway. And she and I have very little in common from a societal standpoint. She's very Republican and she lives in a small town on a farm. And yet she reaches out to me as someone who knows and loves turtles. And so we have this amazing connection over something that we would have never found if we hadn't met on Facebook, met at a beer fest, and chatted. And really, that's what the world is we all have connection points. You just have to find them.
And you got to make it a point to try and find common ground with people, as opposed to always focusing on the things we disagree on. It's
absolutely
so destructive and rampant, really. I mean, it's like it's this mass addiction, and of course, media. And I haven't seen that documentary, The Social Dilemma, yet, but I get the gist. And that we're somewhat engineered towards divisiveness. Obviously, divide and conquer, the powers that be.
We are so easy manipulated.
Yeah.
I mean, we are. I mean, good Lord.
Well, and we're tribal, and we define ourselves in terms of our enemy. And that's got to stop.
Yep.
How do you guys think we get there? Just, do you think these little interactions, like maybe we all have a responsibility to strike up conversations like you guys are doing?
I think there's more than that, but I mean, that's the first step, but I'm not sure what the second step is.
It starts on it because it's nothing I think can come from the top down. I think it's something that's got to come from small groups, 15 people, 20 people getting together, just understanding that, why your politics are different than mine. I don't agree. We have kids. We struggle with, putting food on the table. We have all the same. Most of our struggles between any two people are 70% the same, if not more. And once we get that nice common, everybody shits. Everybody wears pants. I mean, everybody does these things. So if we get down to a nice common thing we can all agree on, and then start to build on that and go, okay, we don't talk about that because that we're really different on, but the majority of everything people do in their lives, we all agree on. I mean,
I think a lot of it is ego too, because everyone's trying to protect their own sense of self.
Yes.
And if you get to a point where you can say, I love you and I respect you, even though we don't agree on this, I love you, I respect you, I'm willing to listen to you, I understand where you're coming from. That deflates the ego. It deflates the defensiveness. Nobody has to fight back when they know you love them anyway.
Yeah, we talk about cops should be taught to diffuse situations. It's kind of like most people are bad cops when it comes to just dealing with each other.
They escalate. Yeah,
let's go in and disarm each other and cool everybody down. But
absolutely,
the ego is the root of all evil.
Yeah, it is. I've said that for years too, because the old adage, avarice is the root of all evil. But what's the root of avarice? Ego.
Everything comes down to ego. That's
Charlie. As Charlie Manson said, ego is a too much thing.
Amazing song, by the way. Say what you want about Charles Manson, motherfucker was pretty talented,
and he never killed anybody.
I know, that's true. It's very crazy.
At least
first time I heard that, I was
famous murders.
Wait a minute, what?
And they all did not have the free will to say no to him.
Yeah, so what the hell is anyone doing behind bars?
Right, exactly.
I'm trying to come up with a good conversation on how to have justice in a non-retributive system.
Well, you can still say that even if they didn't have free will, it's almost because if the argument is they don't have free will and they go murder, then you need to lock them up because they don't have the free will to resist murdering people. You know what I'm saying? So it's not a punitive thing. It's
it's social contracts too. What will society accept and tolerate versus this person needs to be punished?
A car has bad brakes. You take it to the shop, you get them fixed.
Yeah.
Car didn't choose to have bad brakes. It just does.
Right.
So you
and
fix
some
it.
you might have to take off the road forever, even if they're just not able to be repaired.
Death penalty, though, is gross.
At least for a period of time while you work through what's wrong. And I think there's an awful lot of people in prison who could be rehabilitated if we had the appropriate systems in this country. We absolutely don't, because it's based on retribution and punishment.
Punitive,
it's not based on let's help people be better people.
Yeah, and it can be argued that because it's so punitive, including the death penalty, et cetera, that it actually may create more criminals because it creates a society in which life is less valued and it is more harsh and draconian. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I used to be so pro death penalty. Now I'm so against it. It's just
same.
people are like
for it and primarily against it now.
It's like, well, why do we have to pay for these people in prison? Well, it's society's fault. So society should have to pay the cost of housing them.
And us all dividing the burden of the cost isn't even that significant anyway, out of any particular person's pocket. So people just need to stop whining about stuff like that.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Superman 3, fractions of pennies.
Right, exactly.
Actually, the death penalty is pretty freaking expensive too, because of all
the principle.
Stuff.
Yeah. For people who say that, it's the principle. You know, they're like, I don't want to be paying for this criminal to live and breathe when they've, you know.
You're alone, right?
Yeah. Is it cool if I start filming now?
No, when we get inside. Why are you here?
I just thought it was really interesting, you know, that someone hasn't left their basement in 6 months, not even to use the bathroom. Is that true?
Why would I want to go out there? I got everything I need right here. That's what's wrong with most people. They're weak-willed pussies and parasites who buy into that whole "it takes a village" bullshit. You know how many aliases I've used calling into radio shows?
I've had it up to my goddamn gills with the systematic feminization of this country.
Army of course we want you. Get your own damn show if you think you got that much to say.
You live in your mom's basement.
No! Fuck you! What's so special about my loser son?
You really do hate your own mother.
She's a woman. Why wouldn't I?
You know, there's some disconnect there, and if I can find it, what is hate? Where does it come from? Where does it go?
You want to know what gender you are? Reach down the front of your fucking pants. Shoot fucking kite. Black Lives Matter. Do you call horses slaves? Liberal fucktard. Enough with the parades and the rainbow flags.
Dude, this guy's... it's like pure hate, man.
I want to see something really fucking cool.
This guy is a fucking animal. He's got himself on a leash. He's itching to get off that fucking leash. And he's gonna fucking kill some people.
What a fucking show.
Stop!
What do we hear?
Look at me! Look at me!
You're gonna help me show him the light. We're gonna change the world.
This is Cactus Jack coming to you live from a studio audience.
To the man who calls himself Cactus Jack, we have watched as you have rocketed to infamy.
And you wonder why these cornered animals lash out. Pick a fucking side.
And now, we have watched as you have called for literal blood.
I know you're out there listening. It's buzzing in your ears, burrowing into your brain.
Do it.
Jack, you're gonna love this. I pulled that trigger on that motherfucker's head.
Your VPN will not shield you. The darknet will not hide you. You and your kind are finished.
You think I'm scared of you?
Come and fucking get me!
Might I be your neighbor?